3, 2.
Welcome to Dave Talks Some More, the podcast at the intersection of humor and, Hey, I'm your host, Dave, and together we'll explore a riveting world of mundane topics with unparalleled indifference. So get ready for a riveting journey through,
Whatever.
This is
Dave Talks Some More.
All right, far out, man. Thank you for joining us. Glad you have joined us, and we got is it Sean? Sean guy? Sean,
Yes.
What you been up to, buddy?
I'm back from
Made it back from Austin?
Made it back from Austin. Yes, good to be back in the chair and not plugging in remotely.
Yeah, I thought that worked remarkably well. I was happy about that.
I was happy about it. The room I was in though had zero air conditioner in there, and I was completely sweating my butt off in that room.
Yeah, I don't know if people think of Austin, Texas as part of the Deep South, but geographically it sure feels like it. I've been there in the summer and it's brutal.
Yeah, I would say that it's definitely not part of the Deep South. It's
Culturally not.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a billboard or a sign, or maybe it was a bumper sticker or something when I was out there that said Austin, a blue diamond in a red sea.
That's fair.
Yeah, very fair. But I will tell you this: if you've not been to Austin, it had been. I mean, obviously, I moved Sydney out there, but we didn't really kind of hang out in town, and I hadn't really been out and done anything in Austin in over 20 years until this past week, and the food was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I
It
ate,
is a restaurant town.
well, I ate, and I'm not kidding, and I'm a sushi snob. I'm self-proclaimed sushi snob. I believe, in my opinion, I ate at the best sushi restaurant I've ever eaten at.
Where was this?
This was in
Well, I
downtown.
know in Austin, but
Yeah.
where was the name of it?
It was Sushi Roku Sushi, something like that. Anyway, it was unbelievable, and I was just blown away by it. It was, I can't say enough about it. It was so far superior than really any sushi that I've ever eaten.
Did you just start going back? Like, oh, what are we doing for lunch?
Well,
I have an idea.
Obviously, I wanted to, but then, of course, we ate so many great places. I went to this place called a pizza restaurant.
Okay.
We're not getting paid. We're not getting paid for
Oh,
these
we're blocking
people.
off. Yeah, we're not
No.
getting paid. Anyway, I went to this restaurant. Sydney and I were just going to get a slice of pie. We were going to watch a little, basketball on the TV there, and it was this very popular place. Well, they're known not for their pie; they're known for their Italian sub.
Interesting.
And Sydney was telling me about it. And I was like, okay, whatever. And she goes, no, I think we should split the Italian sub and we can split a pizza. So I was like, okay. So we ordered the Italian sub, and it's got, prosciutto, pepperoni, salami, all the Italian meats. And I took one bite of that sandwich, and I was like, this may be the best sub sandwich I've ever put in my mouth. It was that amazing. And of course you Google it, and there's Reddit pages about the sub sandwich from Home Slice in Austin. So yes, anyway, the food was excellent.
Well, sounds like a good trip just from that.
It was, and I got to ride in the Waymo, which was way cool, really cool.
Now, there are people who don't know what a Waymo is.
Well, a Waymo is Uber's self-automated vehicle, and they have it in 4 markets. I believe they're San Francisco, L.A., I think it's in Phoenix. I may be wrong about that, and Austin. And it's a Jaguar SUV. It's called Waymo, and it has cameras all over the entire vehicle. And it pulls up, you open the door, it says, hey. Of course, it knows who you are because of the app and the connectivity. So there's no real issue there, but you get in, there's a computer that starts talking to you, you buckle up and off you go. And the steering wheel's just turning away. And let me tell you, you would think that these cars are just creeping along. No, sir. These cars haul ass. I mean, they get up and go. And so anyway, we loved it. And
were you a little freaked out?
I was not. I kept saying to Sydney, I was like, I want to ride in a Waymo. And so she's like, Dad, I mean, you're not guaranteed to get one. And so I, of course, I had to be the dad. I get online. I'm like, oh, Sydney, you've got to select in your app that you want Waymo to be your preferred method. And so she was like, yeah. I'm like, well, okay. So we selected it. And of course, the first time we called for an Uber downtown Austin, we get the Waymo. We were very excited.
Well, I'm glad to hear Austin has that, because the last time that I spent substantial time in trying to get places in Austin, the traffic is bad,
Yes.
and B, we found I was with my former brother-in-law. We were there to watch the Texas LSU game, and we made the mistake of eating at a restaurant that, I don't know the geography that well. We were basically on the wrong side of town to try to make it back for the game and only have 2 hours. And we kept trying to hit the rideshare apps and just got the spinning wheel or whatever and couldn't call anything. And and we learned later that Austin had banned Uber and Lyft. And
Temporarily.
This
was back when they were having issues with the cab companies.
Well, the thinking was Austin makes a lot of money from DUIs, and these rideshare apps are cutting into the business, and so that's why they banned them, because they need more DUI revenue. That was the theory that we were throwing around.
Well, you know where they get a lot of DUI revenue from? Not from is from the, I call it liming around. We were getting on the scooters downtown.
Oh, those little lime, yeah.
Yeah, the Bird or the Lime, and because they're ride shares as well, and they're everywhere. And Sydney and I, one afternoon, I was like, let's just lime around downtown all afternoon.
Yeah.
And so we did, and it was so much fun. Of course, there's no helmet. I mean, you're not supposed to be on the sidewalk. Of course, people
screw all that.
I mean, you're hauling ass up and down the streets. The only time you could not go fast was when you were in a restricted area near the Capitol. And we went up to the Capitol because there were some protesters, and we wanted to see what was going on.
Mix it up with the protesters.
Yeah, well, we went up there. We didn't really mix up. It was very lame protesting. It was some, migrant workers protesting something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so anyway, we're trying to make the game kind of a big game, obviously, and no rideshare app, no taxi, and way, way too far to hoof it. And so but we were hoofing it, and we walked past an apartment complex, and some guy was pulling out of the complex gate in a pickup truck. And we basically just accosted him,
Said,
and
let us hop in,
and forced him to drive us to the stadium. And he turned out to be a young guy, and he was pretty cool about it. And but what we didn't realize at this building on last week's story, what we didn't realize at the time was he was high. Oh my God, this guy was high. And so neither one of us knows the geography of Austin well enough to understand that. He forgot within 5 minutes of us getting in the truck, and he was just totally cool about it.
He forgot you were in there.
He forgot that the mission was to go to the stadium, and he thought, hey, he's just picked up some new friends, and we were just driving around Austin.
Keep Austin weird, baby.
Yeah, we were keeping Austin weird, and we're like, hey, we'll buy you a tank of gas. So we stop at a gas station, and when we get back in, he pulls out a Ziploc bag. He's like, hey, man, you want to do some shrooms? We're going to have a good time.
Sounds like my kind of friend.
Yeah.
Back in the day, obviously.
Yeah. So, I mean, it could have been, no, we didn't make the game, but could have made it in our imaginations if we'd just been willing to take the entire trip. So I've got a lot of fun memories of Austin. So that could have been one of them.
Well, I'll tell you one other thing we did. We toured the LBJ Museum, Presidential Museum.
That's an okay museum. They've got the big limo, the big presidential limo,
which is not an actual one. It's a recreation.
What I liked was they said that it was an actual reproduction of the Oval Office, which you get to walk into.
Well,
the
it's
repro
1/8 smaller than the normal Oval Office, so it's 7/8 of the actual size.
And if that's true, then the Oval Office is shockingly small.
Yeah,
I mean, amazingly small.
Well, I haven't been in the Oval Office, but I've been in the White House, and all of the rooms are relatively small. I mean, shockingly. Yeah. And, of course, they have an oval room in the center of the White House, and there's multiple oval rooms, because it's multiple floors, and that whole oval design goes from the bottom to the top. But the Oval Office is over in the literal West Wing,
right,
and set off, and it's actually not in the original White House structure, which I found very interesting. Obviously, you hear West Wing, but my tour did not take me to the Oval Office.
You're shocked. Yeah, I'm amazed. Amazed you didn't get to
it. Did not.
Yeah,
but Austin was a great time. It was I can't remember the last time I've done something just where just hung out with one of my kids, just me and one child for that 4 or 5 days. It was a lot of fun.
The original title of the show was going to be The Most Mississippi Thing Ever, because I started making a list of just Mississippi isms, and it all came to me. I guess it was Friday night when I was watching the Ole Miss game, which ended disastrously. The Ole Miss NCAA basketball game.
We didn't win, but I thought it was a respectable game. I wouldn't say disastrously.
Well, if I'll put it like this: it was disastrous because they could have won. They were right.
We had an opportunity.
They were right there. Would have made it into the Elite Eight.
Yeah, yes, but to be fair, Michigan State is a very good team. Tom Izzo is a Hall of Fame coach. He's been to multiple Final Fours. He's won a national championship. I think more than once, right?
Yes.
Tom Izzo is, he's the shit, so to speak.
Well, what made it the most Mississippi thing ever was, of course, while I'm watching the game, I'm also following the comments on X, and all the Mississippi fans, of course, are belly aching about the officiating, and we're getting screwed.
Think it was that bad.
Well,
did you?
Like I said, I personally saw a few things in the first half that I was like, I don't know about that, but it's basketball, and God only knows what the rules are in basketball. What's a charge? What's traveling? Nobody even knows anymore. But the point is, the most Mississippi thing ever that gave me the whole idea was watching Ole Miss people crying about the officiating, and we got screwed, and the conspiracy theories, and I thought, Ole Miss and State don't play any games whatsoever where somehow the officiating doesn't come up one way or another. Why, cry harder when you win, or we got screwed when you lose.
Have you ever seen Alabama lose?
Oh my God.
It's the officials are the worst.
Yes.
Really. So I don't know. I will say this. I was obviously watching the game, and I hated that we lost. And of course the women's basketball team, they lost their Sweet 16 game that same night, a little bit later in the night. But I was thinking about it. Honestly, and there were some really nice comments made by all of the CBS staff after the game, talking about, really what Beard has done for Mississippi and the trajectory of the program. And it couldn't help me come to any other conclusion other than Ole Miss has set itself apart from Mississippi State in the state of Mississippi right now in every major sport. They are ranked in every sport. Baseball, football, basketball, the women's ranked, and State is just, they are pretty much abysmal right now in every sense of the imagination in all of their sports.
Well, that's also a very Mississippi thing, is to stomp on top of your rival and talk about how much they suck and how great you are. So
Well, right.
You're right on theme.
Well, right, sure.
Perfect.
And we don't have a state fan. Show Killer's not here to
Showkiller,
defend.
yeah, we need to call him.
To defend Mississippi State.
Well, I mean, if we were here, as soon as he started talking, I'd just say, "Did you ever see the Toledo game?" And that would be the end of that. I mean,
Or the
that was just
Maine Bear game.
Oh, just so many. But anyway, I started making a list of the most Mississippi thing ever, starting with, I don't know if you ever lived outside of Mississippi for any period of time. So
Not really.
So you might be immune to the Mississippi-isms. Like when I first moved to Mississippi, I was taken aback how no matter who you meet or what the circumstances are, the first 5 questions that they ask about you are who do you know or where do you work, or, it's all about what people are you tied in with.
Sure.
And well, you say sure, I was coming from Houston, Texas, and nobody asked personal questions of that kind. Who's your family? Who's your mom and dad? As if they're going to know them. And I know Mississippi's smaller, but I mean, there's 3 million people. It's not like you're going to know all 3 million. Oh, your dad's
but
Jed.
when you
I know
travel,
Jed.
so let me ask you this. When you travel, and I know you've traveled a good bit.
Right.
Okay. Now you're not born and raised. I mean, you weren't born in Mississippi, were you?
No, born and raised in Baton Rouge.
Yeah. So, but I mean, if you've grown up in Mississippi, you pretty much know a lot of the people, right? And so
Seem to.
when you travel and you run into someone in another state and they go, "Oh, I know someone from Mississippi," and you go, "Who's that?" And of course they tell you, and within a matter of minutes, there's a connection. It's like 6 degrees.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It really is amazing. So it is very Mississippian.
Well, Bonnie and I have been, like you say, a number of places and have had that happen. It's just been shocking how many times that we'll run into somebody and they're from Mississippi. That's not shocking, but they know somebody that she knows, sometimes that I know. And it's just, that's the most amazing one, I think, was we were in an art museum in Rome, not one of the main ones. And we're sitting there waiting for the tour guide to get our tickets. And I won't say their names, but a couple that we know just breezes right past us. And I thought, that's not possible, because I don't know that many people. I mean, maybe I know a few hundred people by name where I know them and feel comfortable stopping and talking to them. And they just walked right past. And I thought, that's no damn way. And then we're at the airport at the end of the trip and see a couple that we know, first name basis. And I'm thinking, and this is at the airport in Venice. And it was really, that is the most Mississippi thing ever.
Well, I get accused by most of my friends and family members of being a horrible person to go out with sometimes if you want to be an introvert, because no matter where they go with me, I know a handful of people.
Right.
And it's like, I mean, I have been in places out of town and they're like, how in the hell? I was in New York one time and I was walking, I was with my sister and I was walking into, I think it was, I want to say it may have been Tiffany's, and we were walking in there and out comes a friend of mine and she's like, what are the damn chances that you know somebody on the streets
About
of New York?
85%. Yeah. Pretty high.
And I was like, well, anyway, as a matter of fact, I'm having lunch with a friend of mine Wednesday, and this person, she's like the female equivalent of me. Like,
oh God,
if she and I go anywhere together, it's like we can't ever get out of a restaurant,
right?
Or, without having to sit there and talk. And my wife, it drives her absolutely crazy. And there are times where she's like, I just want to take my own car.
Well, it's like when you're a kid and you're shopping with your mom and your mom runs into some adult and they start talking. And after about 2 minutes, you're just dying of, Mom, just please stop.
Please stop.
And
you didn't want to be, you didn't even want to be there anyway.
No.
You got dragged there from the start.
Yes.
Yeah. And now you're stuck in eternity.
Another thing that I wrote down is when I first moved to Mississippi, I was amazed at how much time people take off from work. And, starting sometime around Thursday after, forget about Friday afternoon. Friday from noon, the work week ends at noon as far as people returning your calls, or getting anything productive done. If you want to work Friday afternoon, that's fine, but it's kind of like coming in Saturday evening. You're on your own. Nobody's going to be returning that call or answering the email or anything. And it really starts around Thursday afternoon, and God forbid that it's a holiday
But
weekend.
how is that
like,
Mississippi? I don't have to disagree with you a little
because
bit.
everywhere else that I have lived, people work until Friday at 5 o'clock, and there's no leaking out on Friday afternoon. There's damn sure not Thursday afternoon. It's Memorial Day weekend, and you can't get anybody after 10
Sydney
o'clock.
works for an international tech company in Austin, which is one of the tech capitals of the world, so to speak. At least here in the U.S.
It is becoming so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously got Silicon Valley out in California, and then you got Austin, and those are the two really big tech places outside of maybe, I guess, Seattle would be the other one. But in any event, my point is that we were there this past week, and she was doing a little bit of work, and so I said to her, she said, well, everybody at my office leaves at 4:30, and I was like, what do you mean leaves at 4:30? And she goes, literally everyone. And I go, but not your boss. And she goes, 4:30 rolls around and everyone walks out the door, including me, my boss, and all of their bosses. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, I can't imagine walking out the door at 4:30.
No.
Anywhere.
No.
And they do this every day of the week.
Well, but I think that's tech, which has a lot of remote work and a lot of the younger generation. The idea that you're going to tie me to an office for 40 hours a week, forget it. I'm not doing
fortunately,
that.
they let them work out of the office one day a week.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's on Wednesday. And but obviously most of them are young,
Yeah. Well, that's my point.
But they do make them come in the office and work. But it's like Sydney said. She goes, I mean, when I'm making calls to these people that I'm selling to,
doesn't matter where.
No one is there.
Well, that's I think that's a generational thing, and if you're in tech or if you're in a something where basically you're wired off the internet and your job is internet based. Yeah, right. I mean, you can work anywhere you want to. I get that. But I'm talking about, I moved here on June 1st, 1999. Okay. So we're talking about, it's been a while. And I was noticing then, hey, Thursday before a holiday weekend, forget it. People might work till 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning just to come in, check their email, and they're out. Every Friday afternoon, forget about it. And it's just
our whole staff at our firm, they're gone.
Yeah, it took me a while to get used to it, and now I realize this is great. I love this, but for a long time, I felt like I'm out hustling everybody because working 60 hours a week, that's what I've been doing for decades. It's no big deal.
Yeah, but obviously as professionals, you will work from home, you will work on a Saturday, you will work on a Sunday.
Right.
It's different for you and for me and for others in that regard. But I don't know. I mean, any of your manufacturing jobs, they're working clock to clock, period.
Another thing that I wrote down when I first moved here, I was really surprised at how many people, their ambition, like their top goal in life is to get a few acres and drop a mobile home. I mean it.
For hunting?
Yeah. No. Like where do you want to live? I just want to get some land out in the country. Put they won't call it a mobile home. What's the phrase we use here? Not mobile home. Help me.
Manufactured housing?
Yeah, I want to put a manufactured house on some acreage.
Of course, Mississippi is home to some of the largest manufactured housing companies there are.
What a coincidence that
is. There's someone I know that owns a very large company.
I remember the first time driving down from Brandon, where I lived, from Brandon to Hattiesburg. I had court down there, and there was this corridor of manufactured home. What do you call it? Just business after business after business that was selling manufactured homes
Well, now,
just north of Hattiesburg. And I thought, how many people?
Well, Hattiesburg does.
Can there be a market for this?
The manufacturers, a lot of the manufacturers over there on Highway 61 in Vicksburg. Did you know that?
No.
Yes, and so a lot of them come from there. There's a bunch up in North Mississippi as well, and they make a lot. They look that those things are like printing money.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the suburbs, and so my idea was always you just want to improve the quality of the suburb that you live in until one day you're living at the country club suburb. And I mean that, you start off at the scary suburb and you move your way up through life to the country club suburb. I just thought that's how everybody is. And when I moved out here, oh no, people want to live out in the country. And the question is, how nice is the property and how many acres do you have?
Here in the metro area? I mean, maybe
no, but I'm talking about in Mississippi in general.
Sure.
That is a huge ambition that we who were born and raised in the city are just a little surprised by. I'm not judging it, but it's the most Mississippi thing ever. When people say, when they first meet you, now who's your dad? Or what church do you go to?
We'll get up. Mississippians will definitely get up in somebody's business.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Another thing that I wrote down that really surprised me when I moved to Mississippi, I was very, very surprised at not just how big of a deal hunting and fishing are, because I grew up in South Louisiana, so I got that. But the guys that pretty much lived at deer camp for 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time, like they don't have jobs and bills like the rest of us. And some, remember I'm in the divorce business, so I'm hearing about this just about firsthand. He goes to deer camp, he gone for about a month now. And some of the women loved it, and some of the women absolutely hated it, because the guy either got out of their hair for a month.
Well, they're leaving on Thursday afternoon, and they don't come back until late Sunday night.
That was a given.
I have a friend of mine, and he literally he's got some duck land up near Money, Mississippi. I don't know if you know where Money is.
Mm-hmm.
He pretty much is gone the entire month of January. Now.
There you go.
He has a business that allows him to do that. But again, duck hunters, you don't have you don't have poor duck hunters.
Right.
If you're duck hunting, you got some jack.
Well,
so you can afford to take that kind of time
I'm talking about guys that are working on the hourly wage.
They're deer hunting.
And they're deer hunting, and they're doing it for
spotlighting.
food. Yeah.
They're
whatever it takes.
They're
it's
poaching,
like 100 years ago.
They're poaching. They're spotlighting. They're somehow breaking the law in Mississippi. But shit, now in Mississippi, there's such a deer problem. They've gotten to where you killed a doe, good riddance.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
all nuisance. I was surprised. Like I said, I moved here in June 1 of '99. And I was immediately struck by the White Pants Brigade, which I missed Memorial Day, apparently. And I thought just the state uniform for women was wearing white pants, because 9 out of 10 women of taste and culture and education and means, they all, during the summer, it's all white pants all the time.
Well,
and that really surprised me.
But in terms of fashion,
yeah,
for both men and women, the old rules that used to apply no longer apply. They've been pretty much
the Memorial Day to Labor Day thing. Yeah, that's what I assume you're talking about.
Well, that, because you're not supposed to wear linen, after Labor Day, and of course linen, for anyone that lives in the South, has pretty much become a year-round fabric, and it's actually one of my favorite fabrics. I was in Austin last week trying to buy a linen shirt because I need a new linen shirt.
It's a great look. If you can pull it off, it's a great
look.
Look.
And of course, this one girl, I found one linen after I think I went through 8 shops, and found one linen, and it was kind of a Western linen look. It had some sort of like Spanish striping down the side. I was like, sitting there, like, no. But this one woman she goes, you like linen? And I go, I love linen. She goes, what do you like about linen? And I said, well, I like the fact that it wrinkles up. I mean, it looks great when it's kind of messy looking.
Right.
And it's very comfortable, and it's also very cool.
It breathes.
It breathes great. I mean, and so it's got a great look. And she goes, well, I'm just shocked. I didn't think anyone liked linen. And I was like, blasphemy.
Yeah.
I think it's a great fabric. So, and I wear it pretty much year round as long as it's, warm. I'm not wearing it when it's cold.
Well, no. Yeah, right. Another thing that I noticed that amused me, I guess, didn't shock me, but it amused me when I moved here. Of course, I started going to my parents' church, and so they're going to the First Baptist Church of Brandon, Mississippi, which of course you do. And, as you can imagine, the First Baptist Church of any town, Mississippi, is not what you would call the most culturally diverse church. That didn't surprise me a bit.
A lot of Trump voters.
A lot of white, older Trump.
There's
Trump
some
voters.
great
This is
people.
before Trump,
Right.
yeah.
But still, today, a lot of Trump voters.
Well, none of that surprised me. I expected that, but back then I was a younger man and I was in shape, and they have a thing called church league basketball, and even the Baptist had that. And what really surprised me was they would have ringers, and you knew they were ringers because they were people that you never saw on Sunday morning, and would have been a little surprised to see. And all of a sudden,
were you playing in the league with like First Baptist of Jackson and First Baptist of Ridgeland,
and it was
or Christ United?
It was.
Of course, they're not Baptist, but they
10 white guys and 2 really tall, really athletic black guys that were. I'm not saying they didn't attend the church, but it was questionable. It's kind of like I didn't realize that the private schools cared so much about sports that they were bringing in people that otherwise they would never bring into so that they could make sure they could win. That was another shock to me, is that in the private schools, having a winning team is enormously
But that's
important.
not unique to Mississippi. I mean, you've seen
strange.
You've seen the television show Friday Night Lights, right?
Yeah. But those are public schools.
Yeah, but that was Texas.
Well, no, that was West Texas. That was Odessa. And look,
Well,
I lived in
that.
San Angelo, Texas.
they
I
have-
lived in
they're-
literal Friday Night Light high schools.
Right.
I went to those games.
There are schools in Texas, high school, that have stadiums larger
Oh yeah.
than some mid-major colleges.
Yeah, it was something that surprised me about Texas was high school football is enormously important. College football, not so much. Believe it or not, college football in Texas, not that big of a deal. Not nearly like it is in the South.
Well, they
Not
don't have anything
nearly.
else to do. You've been out Midland and Odessa and
yeah.
Lubbock. I mean, there's not shit to do
Well,
other than to get drunk.
No. You're missing what I'm saying. Even in Houston, even in Dallas, even in Austin, high school football is massively important. The stadiums are huge. High school football all over Texas, everywhere, even where they got plenty of other things to do. It is huge, and they're going to that game. And yet the next day, turn it around, and it's time to go watch Baylor. Nobody in Waco cares about Baylor. Nobody in Lubbock cares about Texas Tech. In Austin,
Guns up, baby.
Yeah, in Austin, nobody really cares about Texas, except it's an excuse to go get drunk, and I get that. No, I lived in Houston. Nobody cared about Houston. Nobody cared about Rice.
Buy Slamma Jamma.
Well, I'm telling you, nobody cared about college sport. I mean, yeah, people went to the stadiums. They had their fan base.
But you're talking about some places that
Nobody
aren't
really
really
cared.
college towns. I mean,
Well, that's
Austin,
what I'm saying.
Austin is not a college town.
No, even though it's got the biggest college in the state.
I mean, Waco, I mean,
Ought to be a college town.
It
It is
ought-
a college
it-
town, but nobody really cares.
yeah, but it's Baylor.
Yeah.
I mean, so it is a little bit different.
Well, I mean, I was going to Baylor when Grant Taft was there, and they were turning in 7-4 seasons, 8-3 seasons. I'm telling you, they just didn't care. But anyway, we were talking about the private schools in Mississippi. My God, they cared. And church league basketball, they care so much that they're bringing in ringers. That shocked me. But then
I was a ringer last week.
But some years
in
later,
Austin,
I bet you were
for trivia night.
Oh my God. Okay.
Seriously. But my daughter and her friends, they placed, I think, for the second time ever in their weekly trivia tournament.
Because they had the old white man who knows all the
We came
history.
in second. So my daughter's roommates, mother and father, they went as well. So we were the three ringers, and we lost the number one winning team in this trivia contest. They look like two, I don't know, 68-year-old longtime professors. Okay, I mean seriously,
They live for this.
Yes, and they got every question right, 100%. It was 50 questions, and the name of their team was the Cobras, and so Sydney and her friends, they named their team the Junior Cobras because their goal is to be as good as the Cobras.
Right.
And even with the ringers, we were not as good as the Cobras, but something to shoot for.
I learned a little. I got a little bit more insight into the passion for winning, no matter what it takes. A few years later, when I got talked into being on a joint, or what's the word for it? Mixed doubles tennis.
You talk about some competition.
Well,
holy hell!
But what really amazed me was that it's just taken as granted that you're going to underrate yourself. Like if you're, I think the beginning
Have
rating.
You ever gone and seen women in Mississippi play in their tennis league games?
No, I've just seen them drink afterwards at 1:00.
Well, let me just assure you, it gets ugly.
I've heard
it gets really ugly.
I've heard there's targeting involved. Absolutely, I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, now I played mixed doubles and I played just men, and most of the time the men there's a couple of guys that really care, but most of the men are out there just trying to work off some of their gut. They're out there just shooting the shit, having some fun. But holy hell, when the women when they're playing their league games, I mean, it's an all-out fight, and you better not be sandbagging, because if they catch you sandbagging, it's not good.
Well, in the I only did it for one season, I guess, one semester, and it was at first offensive, and then it got to be funny where somebody would underrate themselves, like they're a whole lot better than how they self-rated themselves.
They're sandbagging.
Yeah, they're sandbagging, and so a couple of times my partner and I go out and we're just getting smoked, even in the warm-ups.
It's no different in golf.
Yeah, I mean, even in the warm-ups, we're just getting smoked. And I'm looking at my partner, and we're looking across the net, and we already know this is going to be the quickest 6-0, 6-0 you ever saw in your life. And it's like, really? I mean, why are we doing this? What does this say about you, that winning is so important that you want to play a couple of near beginners just so that you can get that win? We got that win. We kicked their butt. We beat them 6-0. And I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, that thrills you. That makes you happy. And then talking to other people, apparently it's just absolutely rampant. And then, like you say, talking to people, they always bring that up. And they say, well, golf is you ought to see how people self-rate in golf. And I'm thinking, that's got to say something terribly unflattering, that it's more important to win than to really, have some Dave, honest competition.
I don't think you can hold this to Mississippi, because, I mean, there is the phrase keeping up with the Joneses. I mean, look at America. I mean, every city and suburb in America is nothing but keeping up with the Joneses. Who has the bigger house? Who has the bigger car? I mean, Jesus Christ, not to take the Lord's name in vain. I mean, look at cars. I mean, cars are just, it's unbelievable what people will pay for an automobile that they clearly cannot afford just to make it look like they're successful. I mean, that is, to me, that's more of a, I don't know. I think that's representative of our society as a whole and not really Mississippi.
Okay, well, I mean, the point of this is not Dave dumps on Mississippi for an hour. That's not what I'm trying to,
Okay, yeah,
to do.
I'm with you.
I'm
I
just
know what
saying,
you're trying to
when
do.
I moved here,
Very Mississippi.
there were a lot of things that I thought that's surprising to me. I didn't really expect that. I did not expect
Well,
that
because people thought Mississippi, really we had floors with dirt, kids with no shoes, no education.
I started following a guy on X or TikTok or whatever it was, and he was talking about what people think of Mississippi, and I think a lot of people way outside of our state who aren't from the South think they might still be riding mules, and they might still be out there picking cotton by hand, and just the whole 1930s picture of Mississippi. I think there are people who still think that's how it is, and I think most native Mississippians would greatly prefer that the outsiders
stay outside.
Yeah,
outsiders.
Yeah, please think that about us so that you never come here and mess up. We got a good thing going. By all means, stay away.
I'm going to say something, and I truly believe this, and there's nothing that anyone can say that will ever change my mind on this. But I believe 100% with everything in my being that Mississippi is less racist than pretty much every state in the country. Because if
that would surprise a lot of people.
It would, because but when you go out of town and you travel, and I've traveled all over the country, they have so much segregation in other parts of the country. I mean, Boston. You ever been to Boston?
Sure.
Incredibly racist, and you wouldn't think it. I mean, the way that they are segmented up there. I mean, down in the South, one of the things that we have is we've had 60 plus years since the Civil Rights Act of 64 of really learning how to live with each other amongst the races that we have, and I believe this, we have a much better grasp on how to coexist as races than most parts of the country have, because you just don't see it when you go to other countries. Sure, I have a friend of mine I was in college with. She was from Michigan, and she was like, well, I mean, I thought everyone had a black friend. I'm like, how many black friends do you have? And she was like, one. And, I mean, they come down here, and of course they don't have the kind of integration that you have in Mississippi. I mean, Mississippi's a very, I believe, racially diverse population here. I mean, don't you agree?
Sure.
I mean, you have to be able to live and work amongst other races in Mississippi. You can.
Yeah, I don't know how a dyed-in-the-wool racist could get along here.
You go to Wyoming. I mean, you what are they, like 1% black? If that. I mean, so my point is that, so some liberal white person living up in the Northwest, they're like, oh, we're not racist at all. Well, I guarantee you, if they came down in the South, they would have a different experience.
There's a passage in Gone with the Wind in the book, not the movie. After the war, some Yankee women are asking Scarlett, they need a nanny for their kids. Different people are asking her, and so she's recommending, well, you get an older black woman to take care of your kids, and all these Yankee women are just horrified by the idea of, bringing a black woman into their families. And there's no way they're going to do that. And they're just amazed that this Southern woman says that's what you do. And Scarlett has this moment of realization. Y'all come down here and you say that you're doing it, for these wonderful humanitarian reasons. But y'all hate black people. You Yankees, you hate them. And, of course, it's a Scarlett O'Hara, and the book was written in the late 1920s. So
long
it's not
before the Civil Rights Act.
it's not exactly a bastion of consciousness, but it was an interesting point where she made exactly the point you said, is like, we've been talking to each other and to some degree integrated with each other for years, certainly in an employer-employee situation, but at least we talk to each other and we can have conversations. You Yankees, y'all don't want to have anything to do with anybody other than other white Yankees.
Zip.
Yeah,
I mean, that's my point. I'm not saying that we don't have problems with race here in Mississippi, because sure, absolutely we do. And do we have a long way to go? Yes. But I look at, just in my life, in the 55 years that I've been around, 56 years that I've been around, growing up in Mississippi, I have seen significant changes from the way things were in the 70s as to where they are today. My children, the private school that I went to growing up, obviously in the 70s, if you're white, they're moving you to the private school after the forced segregation in the 60s. That's why the private schools came about. But I think JA now currently has they're like 30% black. And when I was at JA 30 years ago, we didn't have a single black person at JA. And so that's a significant difference. And, to your point earlier, yeah, sure, some of those guys are being brought in to be athletes or whatever, but there are a lot of black students that are coming to JA because they want a better education. And they have parents that are middle to upper class professionals that they want their child to have a better education, and they're not going to send their kid to Jackson, public schools. That's the worst. And so they're sending them to the schools like JA and Prep and MRA, and you're beginning to see an integration that clearly just didn't exist, 30, 40 years ago. And so generationally, I think that we are significantly better than a lot of the schools in other parts of the country. And yet other people would look at Mississippi and think that we're all running around with a bunch of, crosses burning in people's yards.
We're still riding mules in Mississippi.
Right.
Please believe that.
Yes.
To change the subject away from Mississippi, last week we talked about medical marijuana a pretty good bit. And I don't know if you got any pushback on the conversation. I got some.
Really?
Yeah, and the idea was, why are you saying that it's okay to smoke marijuana, and if you make it legal, yeah, in some ways it's safer, but you are also normalizing it. And, now somebody wants to smoke weed before the medical marijuana card. If somebody smokes weed, they're clearly committing a crime. And that's how we want the young people to think of marijuana, is this is a crime. And kids that will drink because it's legal won't smoke weed, and weed being a gateway drug, allegedly, I assume it is.
It 100% is.
Yeah.
And I can speak from experience.
I was going to see if you were going to fight me on that.
No, I bet our producer over here would agree with me. Most people I know that do hard drugs, their first drug was marijuana.
Right. But the pushback was, the great argument against legalizing it, and frankly against legalizing medical marijuana cards, is you're normalizing it, and a lot of people are going to get into it and use it because apparently society has decided it's okay.
Well, that's a conversation and an argument that I would love to have. I don't have any opposition to legalizing marijuana. To me, it's not normalizing it. Do we normalize? Okay, you could say to the same person who's making that argument, so are you saying it's okay to drink? And presumably they're going to say yes, right?
Well, presumably no. I think they would say is that turned into a fight that could not be won I mean, you just couldn't stop it, the drinking. I mean, we literally tried that in the country and it didn't work.
Well,
So
right.
we had to
I had
to
this
give in.
I had this conversation with Tad, one of my partners, this week, and we're representing someone in a medical marijuana case, some litigation that's going on, and we were having this discussion about our podcast, and of course, discussing this very thing about just total legalization of marijuana, and what we started talking about were the similarities with prohibition and alcoholism, with alcohol, not alcoholism,
Mhm.
but in alcohol, we had the same. If you go back in history, initially when you first started allowing people to drink, people were drinking alcohol for medicinal reasons. And that whole sham eventually just went by the wayside because that's just what it is a total sham. I mean, I look at it as a drug addict. Obviously, I'm sober and have been for 37 years. To me, the medical marijuana requirement is a complete and total sham. I mean, if you don't want your child to do drugs, tell them, I don't want you to do this. I mean, but alcohol, in my opinion, is just as equally harmful, if not more harmful than marijuana. I mean,
When do you think they're just going to kick the doors down and say, you know what, marijuana is completely illegal and we're going to do away with you got to go get a doctor card and all that?
Look, I don't know the stats. I mean, I could Google them, but I can assure you, if anyone here wants to challenge me on this, I will tell you all day long and twice a Sunday, go Google it, and you will lose this argument and challenge to what I'm about to say 100% of the time. People want to make an argument that we have this huge opioid problem in America. Okay. And I would say, yeah, we sure do. But it is not a crisis. What is a crisis is the number of alcoholic deaths that we have in this country. It dwarfs. You could put fentanyl, opioids, which is a type of opioid. You can put all the other drug deaths together, and it pales in comparison to the deaths that come from alcoholism and alcohol abuse in this country. And no one in this country is saying that alcohol is a problem. No one's trying to regulate alcohol. We've normalized something that kills more people than any drug combined. And that is the real issue in this country.
Only because we couldn't stop it. I mean, we tried it. We gave it the old college try, and it didn't work. I think there are a lot of people who would say, if we could put a ban in place that actually kept it off the streets so that there were no drug dealers.
You talking about drugs or alcohol?
All of it. If you could somehow put a ban in place where there was no black market for it, there were no drug dealers on the corner.
That's a utopia that's never going to exist.
Yeah.
I know you know that.
Right.
I mean, but who could actually argue for that?
Well,
I think
that's the point, is we tried it, didn't work. And so you go in the other direction. You just throw open the doors and say, fine, use whatever you want. At least we can put some safety protocols in place. But that's last week's argument. I'll keep going.
No, well, it's interesting though that you had some pushback. I really have not had any pushback except for one person that, and I think even Dabs was, she was somewhat shocked that I took the position that I took about, because you're a sober drug addict. Why would you take that position? It's just like, I don't know. I look at all of that and think, if you've got a problem, and there are people that honestly, in my opinion, can smoke weed and they don't have a problem. Okay. You really don't see too many recreational cocaine users, fentanyl users, meth, crack. I mean, you're just not recreationally using those types of drugs. But I do believe that there are recreational marijuana users that smoke an occasional joint here and there on a weekend that aren't doing it every day. They drink, they smoke a joint kind of the way they drink a beer on a Sunday afternoon. Those people do exist. People like me that couldn't stop. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's marijuana, whether it's LSD, whether it's tobacco. I mean, if I am chemically addicted and I have the disease of addiction, it doesn't matter what the drug is. And to me, the biggest problem that you have in this country is you have medical scientists that want to sit there and say they don't know the first damn thing about addiction. and doctors will say, oh, well, this particular drug is addictive because it has these addictive qualities that our body is going to be physically addicted to it. But the disease of addiction, chemical addiction, whether it's alcoholism or drug addiction, that has a mental component that does not exist with the physical component. And so, whether or not you're physically addicted to something has nothing to do with whether you're mentally addicted. And it's the mental side of addiction that is what drives people to the depths of despair, certainly that I went into. And so it doesn't matter whether it's physically addicted or not. If I'm going to do something that I enjoy, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it until all hell breaks loose.
If you're going to do it, you're going to do it.
Exactly right. And so, Nancy Reagan's "just say no" was the dumbest thing in the world. I mean, I used to make fun of that when I was still using. And even after I got sober, I would still make fun of it because you can't just say no if you've got a problem.
No, that's not what she was saying, though. She was talking to kids and saying, when your friend tells you to try drugs,
I get it.
Just say no to that.
You're right. You're 100% right. But it morphed into something that was...
Well, it turned into a joke.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's, the media turned all of it into a big joke because
it was her.
They wanted to make a joke out of Reagan, which kind of segues into the media making a joke or being made a joke of. I had a few notes about TV news, and I guess I'll start with political TV. NPR got publicly, and I mean,
I'm glad we're covering
in a
this.
very public way, humiliated beyond words, or exposed, or they really weren't humiliated or exposed because nothing happened that everybody didn't already know. It was just finally dragged out into the open as to, believe it or not, NPR is propaganda.
I agree with you completely. I'm curious as to know your answer to this. Do you believe as a result of this that NPR will be completely
defunded?
Completely defunded.
I think so.
Yeah. I think it's going to go away.
And I would have said no, except they pulled the plug on Voice of America, which gets a lot more bipartisan cover than NPR. NPR has been, how do you describe NPR? You get left-leaning news stories, and then you get the most trivial stories like the mayoral. I remember one time I was listening to it, and they covered the mayoral election in some town in Ecuador. Like I guess that's news, but it was the most random back page of the back page of the back page of the world news. And they spent 12 minutes on it. And I'm going, this is the most NPR thing ever. I mean, who cares? And then they move on to, the best way to crochet a sweater or something. It's just stupid stuff.
Who was I'm totally drawing a blank here. Who was the guy that was on NPR forever? That's the bottom line, or he was a famous guy. He's dead now. He was on public radio for years and years and years.
The name doesn't ring a bell for me.
Well, I can't think of his name. I'll have to come back to that. But my point is that for a long time when I was growing up, I mean, public radio was good. I mean, you heard a lot of really good stuff that wasn't infused with left or right politics. You just got news, and certainly that is not the case today.
You get Garrison Keillor on Saturday night, and that was always a real entertaining show. If you had the kind of nerd mentality, it was a good show for nerds, put it like that. And there were a few shows on that were good. If you like classical music, and not a whole lot of people do, but I do. And so it was good for that. But, we can live without it. Public television coming under the same scrutiny, taking a beating for the same reason, especially when it turns out that the kids' shows, and we did the Snow White discussion last week, I think, where the kids' shows are turning into indoctrination. And
did you see what happened though this week with
Not
with-
this week. I saw last week in the box office for Snow
well, they
White
got
was
killed,
brutal.
and they're getting killed this weekend too.
Right.
But did you see where the producer's son
Yes.
went after the girl?
Well, that somebody was saying, we've got the First Amendment and free speech, and she wants to say all these things. She can say all these things. And then the son of the head producer for Disney just went off and said, let me tell you about, she has wrecked a lot of people. There are a lot of blue collar people who depended on this movie doing well. And she totally wrecked it for all of them. So here's my free speech, and just totally obliterated her.
Well, his point is that when you work for a company and you're under contract for something that is going to be sold to the masses, regardless of what your political beliefs are, you're supposed to keep your mouth shut if you want that job.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you've got the right to say it, but let me make it very clear. If you go and say that, you're going to get fired. And that's essentially what's happened to her.
Yeah, all of her public appearances, she was going to be interviewed on Kimmel and all the shows. All of them got canceled because they
Every one
figured
of them.
out she's
People
just-
were upset that the producer had to go talk to her.
right.
And he's like, she's a 20-year-old idiot. And she was.
In other TV news, and we talked about it last week, I just love the NCAA tournament because it's so dramatic and so interesting, and the upsets and the nobody knows who they are teams winning the big game at the last second. That appears to be dead because all the games were chalk. All the people that were supposed to win did win. And I don't know if you're still tuning in. I mean, it is just boring watching. The teams that are supposed to win are winning by 20 points. It's become the big who cares tournament.
Yeah, I mean, of the final 8, the lowest seed was a 3.
Yeah.
And they got killed.
Yeah, and they got killed. So it's just the biggest who cares. So you hate to see something that's always been great to watch just turn into
honestly,
boring, honestly.
And we talked about this pre-show, but I don't see it changing anytime soon. I don't know that it will ever go back
because of the NIL.
I mean, I know Gonzaga has had a name, but if you pick some random Midwestern team, I mean, those schools cannot compete with the SEC.
Mm.
People are so crazy. How has the SEC become so big in basketball all of a sudden? It's because the SEC gives a shit about sports, and they're the ones willing to pay the money.
Yeah.
I mean, the Big Ten, obviously their teams are able to run with the SEC in terms of athletic NIL support. But, I mean, you're seeing the ACC fall by the wayside, just like you're seeing the ACC fall by the wayside in football. You're seeing a lot of these the mid-majors are just gone.
Yeah.
I mean, there hadn't been one Cinderella story this entire tournament.
Yeah. And I mean, there's
not one.
Yeah. There's 68 teams at the start of the tournament, and usually a couple or 3 will make a name for themselves, at least for a weekend.
Not one Cinderella
one
team made it into the Sweet 16.
Yeah, it was awful. So that was boring. It's going to be a weekly baseball rant for me, and I'm sorry, but it's my sport and it's my show, so I get to talk about baseball, by God, if I want to.
College or pro?
Major League Baseball. I've spent the first 3 months of the year talking about how we have all these trivial little holidays. One of my favorite holidays always is opening day for Major League Baseball. I usually do. I didn't, but I had my iPad ready because my team first pitch at 3:00. And so at 2:00, that'd be the Houston Astros. I was ready to go. And, so I was going to, answer emails and do a little legal research or whatever I was going to do and have the game on. I was going to have it on mute, but I was going to have the game on. I'm going somewhere with this. And as it turned out, all of Major League Baseball had a glitch on their MLB TV so that if you were trying to watch opening day through the app, forget about it. It wouldn't happen.
Through the MLB app.
Through the MLB app. And so that really pissed me off because I've been waiting weeks for this. The story continues because Friday.
The Houston Astros don't have like their own independent network?
No, but I'm at the office,
Okay.
and so I'm want to watch it there. And so then, fine. I've been waiting for it for weeks. Don't get to see it, but fine. And it's opening day. I've got some personal history. I've had very good things happen to me on opening day.
Not non-baseball, really.
Well, I'll tell the story. There was a time in my life when I was unemployed for about 6 months, and it was, if you've ever been unemployed for a long time, it is awful.
It is terrible.
It is, I mean, just brutal. And I went on a job interview. It turned out on the day before opening day, and it was for the state. This was when I lived in Texas, and I worked for this. And I was applying for a job with the state, and the interview went so well.
Was this your prosecution job?
Well,
Kind of. Well, anyway,
kind of.
not to digress.
Yeah, and the guy that the people that were interviewing, one of them was so impressed with me. He said, I know you're not interviewing for this job, but there's another opening in Houston that's a supervisor's job, and I really would like for you to interview for that as well, if you can. And so he drove me over to this other office and interviewed there. And so it was like, hey, I interviewed for a mid-level job, and hell, I might end up with a supervisor's job. This is going to be, I mean, it was fantastic. And I'm sitting at an airport bar on opening day, and
What year was this?
this would have been 97, maybe. No, it was 97, April of 97, and my wife at the time called me, and I'm sitting at an airport. By the way, an airport bar is the only place where it's fine for you to get drunk at 9 o'clock in the morning. Like,
Because everybody else is.
Yeah, publicly drunk. It has occurred to me that the only place that you can get publicly drunk and nobody judges you at all at 9 a.m. is at an airport bar. So I'm sitting in an airport bar.
Because you don't know anyone.
Yeah.
Unless you're me.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
what are you doing
What
here?
are you doing? Blowing my brains out because I got to travel. But I get a call, and I'm watching the Cincinnati Reds, because it used to be baseball observed its traditions. Cincinnati always got the first game of opening day. And so I'm sitting at an airport bar.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It for only, I don't know, 100 years, but who needs tradition? Now, the first game of the season was played at 5 a.m. in Tokyo this year
Oh, yeah.
between the Cubs and the Dodgers. Like, Major League Baseball hates you. Believe me, if you're a baseball fan, Major League Baseball hates you. But
Well,
anyway.
they're no longer marketing to Americans.
I don't know who they're marketing to, not to me. But so anyway, I'm sitting in an airport bar, 97.
Well, they're marketing to Asia.
My wife calls me and says, they offered you both jobs and wanted to know which one you wanted. And so
Now, let me
remember
think about that.
there were reasons not to take the supervisor's job, but if you've been unemployed for 6 months and you're watching baseball, and you get that your wife calls in and says that's the phone message that came in, you will never forget it. Like the joy, the overweening joy. And opening day to me I will never forget that phone call ever, and just joy and happiness and relief and
Until this year.
and the whole bit. So anyway, they ruined my opening day. Fine, you win, Major League Baseball. And then Friday, I'm finally gonna watch a game. Oh, but it's on Apple TV. And Apple TV, you got to have the password. And where's my password? And I've gone off on, I can never find any of my passwords, and forgot your password, and it's just the whole bit. I finally couldn't watch, so I couldn't watch it Friday.
Apple has something that allows you to save your passwords across your devices.
Yes, that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, it's not until Saturday that I'm finally watching it, and and that's on a different channel. And there's just something about Major League Baseball where they run and hide as to where the games are. They do not have a single channel where you can watch all 162 games of your team. You got to go. Sometimes they're on Apple.
Amazon
Sometimes
Prime
they're
have
no. It has some of the games. Apple has some of the games. Some of the games are over on Fox. Some of the games are here, there, and everywhere. And it drives me nuts that
So you just got to find your team and where they're normally playing.
you gotta chase them down and find them, because God forbid they want to make it easy for you to watch their games.
It's really just a ploy to have you subscribe to every streaming service.
Sure it is. And also it makes you say, you know what, you win. I will go find something else to do, which is what I wound up doing Friday. So Major League Baseball, I love the product, but my God, you suck.
Except for
you
the Yankees.
Suck so bad.
You don't like the Yankees product.
Well, everybody that has any sense hates the Yankees. So, and now,
I can't believe we're not even gonna. I mean, I know we're out of time today, but I know that we're not even going to bring up the discussion
the
of
torpedo bats.
The torpedo bats.
Well, only because the Yankees have hit a bunch of home. Two of their players started using torpedo bats, and for those who don't know, some MIT guy figured out that
it's within the rules.
If you change the shape of the bat so that it's got this bulge at the trademark on the bat, which is where the ball and bat make contact the most, you can hit it a lot farther. That's the story that's being told. That's not really true. Torpedo bats have been around for years, and a lot of minor league teams have them. Torpedo bat, there's nothing new about torpedo bats. It's just these two guys have had success over 2 games, and so suddenly it's the rage. But it's the first weekend of the series.
Well, the one guy that they initially changed it for, I don't know how they did it. I guess with just technology, they were able to discern that like 98% of all of his hits were on the top of the neck or the bottom of the barrel,
within a specific 1.5 inch spot
and
on his bat.
So they moved it to give him some extra wood, stay within the dimension requirements of, I think it's like 2 point, whatever it is. But they stayed within the rules, and then the guy started just jacking them out of the park.
Yeah, it was. They could have painted a red dot on his bat and said, you're only allowed to hit the ball on this red dot, and if you hit it on any other part of the bat, it doesn't count, and he would have been fine because that's the only place where he hits the ball. And so they changed the shape.
Can you imagine being that good? I mean, that's like golfers. I mean, they hit on the same spot on their club every single time. Look at a major league golfer's club head, and they got one spot.
Well, we'll end the show today with me promising you torpedo bats are not going to be the next big thing. It's just a couple of guys had
no
some
real
really
bombshell
good games
today either.
Yeah.
Except we hadn't even talked about Dabs. The fact that she's missing today.
Well,
Godspeed and good luck to her recovery.
After the show, we'll have other things to say, maybe. Hey, thanks for joining us
on that bombshell.
Dabs. We'll see you next week.